Song-ju, a young soldier, had just returned from finishing his service. He was stepping into civilian life, a fresh start in a big city, with new opportunities, new chances. He was lucky, landing a job at a prestigious company was a big step forward for him. That evening, he was invited to a charity event organized by one of the largest companies in the country. Song-ju wasn't particularly fond of glamorous parties and people in the limelight. His simplicity set him apart, and some acquaintances laughed at the fact that he didn't belong to their circle. But it was there, amid the hustle and bustle, that he saw her. Yoon-ho, a young, attractive woman with striking features and a slender body that drew men's attention. She wasn't just the heir to a large corporation but also knew how to use her position to get what she wanted. Her manners, her laughter, everything about her was alluring, and Song-ju couldn't help but notice her. If not for her inaccessibility, she could have been the dream of any man. Yoon-ho was the perfect image of everything he had never known but wanted to be part of. Her elegance, her social grace, and the way she controlled every room she entered fascinated him. Little did he know that the meeting, although brief, would change the course of his life forever. As Song-ju spent more time at his new job, he found himself increasingly drawn to Yoon-ho. She was everywhere in his life, at events, in meetings, and even in the halls of the company, where her influence seemed to extend far beyond her age. It wasn't long before she took a special interest in him. Her charisma was undeniable, and he was both flattered and intrigued by her attention. Yoon-ho knew what she wanted, and it wasn't just the business world. She had her eyes on Song-ju, not just for his character and sincerity, but also because she saw potential in him, someone who could help elevate her social status even further. But while he admired her from a distance, he began to realize something. Her interests in him weren't purely based on affection, they were transactional. He was a means to an end, her end. Meanwhile, there was Mi-ran, the quiet, humble girl he had known since childhood. Mi-ran was different. She worked at a small cafe near Song-ju's apartment, a place he often visited for its cozy atmosphere and comforting simplicity. She didn't seek attention, nor did she try to manipulate others. Mi-ran was warm-hearted, with a natural kindness that Song-ju found deeply appealing. Despite the stark differences in their lives, Yoon-ho's world of luxury and Mi-ran's humble existence, Song-ju found himself drawn to Mi-ran's sincerity. She never asked for anything from him, but her actions spoke volumes. She was always there for him, offering support without expecting anything in return. Mi-ran was everything Yoon-ho was not. She was grounded, real, and showed him the kind of love that wasn't tied to ambition or manipulation. As the days passed, Song-ju found himself trapped in a dilemma. He was falling for Mi-ran's kindness, but his growing connection with Yoon-ho kept pulling him back into her world. He couldn't help but be seduced by her power, her confidence, and the promise of a better life, a life that Mi-ran could never offer. But in the silence of the night, when he sat alone in his apartment, he couldn't ignore the voice in his head telling him that what he had with Mi-ran was real, while what he had with Yoon-ho was built on shaky foundations. He was torn between the girl who could give him everything in terms of material wealth and the girl who had nothing but her heart to offer. The battle between heart and ambition was becoming more complicated with each passing day. He began to question what truly mattered, the life of comfort and status that Yoon-ho promised, or the simple, yet meaningful existence that Mi-ran represented. Every moment spent with Mi-ran made him feel at peace, while every encounter with Yoon-ho left him feeling more and more conflicted. The tension between Song-ju, Yoon-ho, and Mi-ran reached a boiling point when he discovered the truth about Yoon-ho's intentions. It happened one fateful evening when Yoon-ho, in a rare moment of vulnerability, admitted to him that she had been using him to climb higher in the business world, that she had no intention of a real relationship. Shocked and devastated, Song-ju confronted her, but Yoon-ho's response was cold and calculating. She apologized but didn't seem genuinely remorseful. To her, everything was part of the game, a game he had unknowingly become a part of. In the days that followed, Song-ju was consumed by anger and disbelief. How could he have been so blind? How could he have allowed himself to be used so easily? And yet, despite the betrayal, part of him still wanted to believe that they could somehow salvage something from their relationship. But deep down, he knew the truth: Yoon-ho was never going to change. Mi-ran, on the other hand, had never been anything but honest with him. She had given him her heart without expecting anything in return, and even though she knew of his growing connection with Yoon-ho, she had never tried to manipulate him into choosing her. Mi-ran's love was simple and pure, and that made it all the more difficult for Song-ju to walk away from it. But how could he be with her when he had been so deeply affected by his past choices? In a moment of clarity, Song-ju made a decision that would change his life forever. He chose Mi-ran, not because she was perfect, but because her love was real. Yoon-ho, with all her wealth and power, could never give him what Mi-ran could: unconditional love, honesty, and peace of mind. Choosing Mi-ran was not easy. The weight of the decision felt heavy on Song-ju's shoulders. He had to leave behind the promise of a life filled with luxury, prestige, and power, but he knew that what he was gaining in return was priceless. A life of genuine love and happiness, free from the games and manipulations of the world he had once been so eager to join. When he confessed his decision to Mi-ran, she was hesitant at first, unsure if she could trust him after everything that had happened. But over time, she saw that his feelings for her were sincere. She forgave him, as she always had, and together they began to rebuild their relationship, brick by brick. As for Yoon-ho, she didn't take the rejection well. She continued to use her charm and power to manipulate other men, but in the end, she found that material wealth and social status could never replace the love and loyalty that Song-ju had found with Mi-ran. Song-ju learned that love, trust, and honesty were far more valuable than anything money could buy. His decision to choose Mi-ran marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one where he could live authentically, without fear of betrayal or deceit. And as he looked forward to the future, he knew that, despite the difficulties, he had made the right choice. Song-ju's decision to choose Mi-ran over the world of glamour and manipulation was the beginning of a new chapter in his life, but the road ahead was far from easy. He had left behind the promise of luxury, but what he had gained was immeasurable: a love rooted in honesty, trust, and mutual respect. Mi-ran, though grateful, still carried the burden of knowing how easily Song-ju had been manipulated by Yoon-ho. She loved him deeply, but doubts lingered in her heart. Could she fully trust him again after everything? Could they truly rebuild a life together without the shadows of the past hanging over them? For Song-ju, every day with Mi-ran was a lesson in what real love meant. He had lived in a world of fake smiles, shallow relationships, and superficial desires for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to truly connect with someone. Mi-ran showed him the beauty of simplicity, the power of kindness, and the strength that came from being vulnerable. She had been through hardships too, but unlike Yoon-ho, she had never used her struggles as a way to manipulate or control others. She had remained pure, despite all that life had thrown at her. Their relationship slowly healed, but there were moments when Song-ju's past would resurface. He would find himself comparing Mi-ran to Yoon-ho, wondering if he had made the right choice. Would life with Mi-ran ever be as exciting as the promises of grandeur Yoon-ho had offered? But with every doubt came the reminder that he had chosen authenticity over illusions. And with Mi-ran, he found peace, something he had never known before. Despite Song-ju's attempts to move on, Yoon-ho was never far from his mind. Her presence lingered in the background, a reminder of everything he had walked away from. He had hoped that, in time, Yoon-ho would fade from his life completely. But she wasn't ready to let go. One afternoon, while walking through the city with Mi-ran, Song-ju received a message from Yoon-ho. She wanted to meet him. After some hesitation, he agreed. He knew it would be difficult, but he felt he owed her some closure. When they met, Yoon-ho was no longer the confident, manipulative woman he had once known. She was broken, vulnerable, and lost. The weight of her actions had caught up with her. Her beauty, her charm, none of it could fill the emptiness inside her. She had everything in the world but had lost what truly mattered. And now, standing before Song-ju, she was desperate for something real. "Song-ju," she began, her voice trembling, "I've realized that all I ever wanted was power, status, and control. But I lost everything that mattered to me in the process. I thought I could make you love me, but I never understood what love really is. I thought I could make you feel something, but in the end, I only hurt you." Song-ju didn't respond immediately. He had no words to say to her. What was there left to say? She had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. He had made his own choice, and he was finally at peace with it. "I'm sorry," she said, tears in her eyes. "I ruined everything. But I've changed." Song-ju didn't need to say anything. He knew that no matter how much Yoon-ho had changed, the damage had already been done. He had found something far more valuable than her deceit. He had found love, trust, and respect with Mi-ran. And that was all that mattered. As the weeks passed, Song-ju and Mi-ran continued to build a life together, brick by brick. They were not perfect, and their relationship was not without its struggles, but it was real. They supported each other through their challenges, shared their dreams and fears, and slowly created a future that was entirely their own. Song-ju knew that he would never forget his past, but he had finally let it go. Yoon-ho was a part of his history, but she no longer defined him. He had chosen to live for himself, to embrace the love and honesty that Mi-ran offered, and to build a future that was grounded in reality, not fantasy. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their small apartment, looking out at the city lights, Song-ju realized that this was the life he had always wanted. Not the life of wealth and status that Yoon-ho had promised, but the life of love and simplicity that Mi-ran had shown him. He had everything he needed right here. And as they sat there, hands intertwined, he knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, with honesty, trust, and love. Song-ju had come a long way from the man who had once been torn between two worlds. He had learned that the most important things in life could not be bought with money or power. They came from within, from the relationships we build, the love we give and receive, and the choices we make. In choosing Mi-ran, he had found not just love, but himself. He had rediscovered the strength to stand by what was real, what was true. And as they moved forward together, he knew that the best was yet to come. Life with Mi-ran was peaceful, but Song-ju knew that every relationship, no matter how genuine, faced its own set of challenges. As time passed, both of them adjusted to their new life together. But even the simplest of things had their difficulties. Mi-ran, with her unyielding goodness and gentle nature, had her own insecurities, some of which Song-ju had never noticed before. One evening, as they were sitting in their small but cozy apartment, Mi-ran turned to him, a look of uncertainty on her face. "Song-ju," she began, her voice soft, "do you ever think about the life we could have had, the life that could have been so different?" He paused, surprised by the question. He knew what she meant. They both knew how close he had come to living a completely different life, a life with power, status, and luxury. And even though Mi-ran had shown him the beauty of a simple life, there were still moments of doubt. "I think about it sometimes," Song-ju admitted, "but only to remind myself of how lucky I am. I've already found everything I need. I've found you." Mi-ran smiled faintly but still seemed lost in thought. "I know, but I can't help feeling like I'm not enough. You could have had everything, money, power, all the things people crave. And yet, you chose me. I'm just afraid that one day, you'll wake up and wonder if it was all worth it." Song-ju reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Mi-ran, what we have, it's more than I ever dreamed of. I didn't choose you because you were all I could have, but because you were everything I needed. You are my home, my peace. No amount of wealth or status could ever give me that." But Mi-ran wasn't convinced. Deep down, she feared that her simplicity, her lack of material wealth, would one day drive a wedge between them. Despite Song Ju's assurances, she could not shake the feeling that their love was too fragile, too easily overshadowed by the world they both had once known. The next few weeks were tense. Mi-ran began pulling away, spending more time alone and becoming distant. Song Ju, unable to understand why she was withdrawing, grew frustrated. He wanted to believe that their love could overcome any obstacle, but his confidence was beginning to waver. One day, Mi-ran disappeared for a few hours, leaving Song Ju confused and worried. He tried calling her, but her phone went unanswered. The uncertainty was unbearable. When she finally returned, he could see the sadness in her eyes. "I went to visit my family," she said quietly. "I had to see them. I needed to remind myself of where I come from." Song Ju was relieved that she was safe, but the words stung. Why had she felt the need to leave? Did she doubt their relationship so much that she needed to go back to her roots to find comfort? "Mi-ran, what's going on?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "Why are you pulling away from me?" "I'm sorry," she said, looking down. I don't want you to regret choosing me. You deserve more than what I can give you." Her words hit him harder than he expected. It wasn't just her insecurities, it was her fear of being unworthy of him, of their love. He took a deep breath and moved closer, gently lifting her chin so their eyes met. "You don't understand, do you? What I want is not money or power. It's you. You, with all your imperfections, your kindness, your honesty. You're everything I could ever ask for. I don't regret a single thing. I've never been surer of anything in my life." Mi-ran's eyes welled up with tears, and she buried her face in his chest. "But what if I can't give you everything you want? What if, one day, you realize that you could have had so much more?" Song Ju held her tight. "Mi-ran, we've already built everything together. And that's enough for me." Mi-ran's doubts didn't disappear overnight. She had grown up with little, and the idea of a life filled with wealth and social status was something she couldn't completely push away. But with time, she began to understand that love wasn't about material things, it was about the connection between two people, the trust they built, and the life they created together. One evening, as they sat on the balcony, watching the sunset, Mi-ran finally spoke again. "Song Ju, I've been thinking a lot. I don't want to live in fear anymore. I don't want to worry about being enough for you. I know that love isn't about things, and I need to stop comparing myself to others." Song Ju smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Mi-ran, you've always been enough. You've always been more than enough." As they watched the sun dip below the horizon, Mi-ran leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. She wasn't afraid anymore. She had chosen love, a love that was real, not based on material wealth, but on trust, respect, and unwavering support. Their journey had been filled with obstacles, but they had finally arrived at a place where they could move forward together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held. With Mi-ran's doubts finally put to rest, Song Ju and she began building the future they had always dreamed of. They worked together to build a life that was simple but full of meaning. They didn't need extravagant things or expensive gifts, they had each other, and that was more than enough. As the years passed, Song Ju's love for Mi-ran only grew stronger. She became his everything, not just his partner, but his best friend, his confidant, and his greatest support. And though their life was far from perfect, they both knew that it was the only life they needed. In the end, they realized that the greatest gift wasn't wealth or status, it was the love they had for each other, a love that had been tested but had withstood the trials of life. Together, they faced the world, knowing that no matter what happened, they would always have each other. Life had settled into a new rhythm for Song Ju and Mi-ran. After all the emotional turmoil, the doubts, and the betrayals, they had finally found their peace. But no relationship is ever free of challenges. Just when it seemed that everything was going perfectly, a new set of obstacles emerged. Song Ju had been promoted at his company, and with that came more responsibility, more hours, and more pressure. As he climbed the corporate ladder, he was increasingly drawn into a world that Mi-ran had never been a part of. The late nights, the high-stakes meetings, and the constant tension began to take a toll on their relationship. Mi-ran noticed the changes, the distance that had begun to creep between them. At first, she tried to ignore it, telling herself that it was just the stress of his new job. But as weeks passed, the late nights turned into early mornings, and Song Ju's focus seemed to shift away from her and their life together. It wasn't that he didn't love her, he did, more than anything, but the demands of his career were starting to overshadow the life they had once built. One evening, after he returned home later than usual, Mi-ran could no longer hold her feelings inside. She confronted him. "Song Ju," she began, her voice trembling, "you're changing. I can feel it. You're not here anymore. You're somewhere else, and I don't know how to reach you." Song Ju's heart sank as he saw the hurt in her eyes. He hadn't realized how much he had been neglecting her. "Mi-ran, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to secure our future, our life together. I thought I was doing the right thing by working harder, earning more, so we could have everything we've ever dreamed of." "I don't need all of that," she replied, her voice breaking. "I just need you. I need the man who promised me that nothing else mattered but us." Her words hit him harder than anything else ever had. He had been so caught up in providing for their future that he had forgotten what truly mattered, the present. The moments they shared together, the connection they had built over time. He had been so focused on securing their future that he had nearly lost the most important part of it. "I've been a fool," he admitted, taking her hands in his. "I thought I could give you everything by giving you things, but I've been wrong. You're right, all I need is you." The conversation between Song Ju and Mi-ran that night became a turning point in their relationship. They realized that, in the rush to build a life, they had overlooked the most important thing, each other. They decided that, no matter how busy life became, they would prioritize their time together. They knew they had to rediscover what had brought them together in the first place. In the following months, Song Ju made a conscious effort to balance his career and his personal life. He began taking weekends off to spend with Mi-ran, going on walks in the park, enjoying simple dinners at home, and making sure to listen to her when she spoke. Mi-ran, in turn, worked on her own personal growth, rediscovering passions she had set aside to support him. She began taking up new hobbies, reconnecting with old friends, and focusing on her own well-being. Their relationship, which had once been strained by ambition and insecurities, began to flourish again. They found themselves laughing together more, enjoying the little things, and appreciating each other in a way they hadn't done in years. The flame they thought had almost died out was reignited, burning brighter than ever. They also learned to communicate better. They weren't perfect, but they were committed to understanding each other's needs and finding common ground. It wasn't about achieving perfection, it was about supporting each other through the ups and downs, celebrating the victories, and learning from the setbacks. As the years passed, Song Ju and Mi-ran continued to build their life, one day at a time. They faced challenges, but they faced them together. There were moments of doubt, moments of hardship, but through it all, they never stopped supporting each other. Song Ju's career continued to thrive, but now he found a balance between work and home life. He understood that his success didn't just come from his job but from the love and partnership he shared with Mi-ran. Together, they created a home that was full of warmth, laughter, and love. Mi-ran, too, found her own path. While she had always supported Song Ju, she now had her own aspirations and dreams. She started her own small business, combining her love for art and design. Song Ju, ever the supportive partner, cheered her on every step of the way. They traveled together, explored new places, and continued to grow as individuals and as a couple. And through it all, they never forgot the lessons they had learned, that love wasn't about the grand gestures, but about the everyday moments of kindness, patience, and understanding. Years later, Song-ju stood at the same place where he had first met Mi-ran, reflecting on the journey they had taken together. He had come so far from the man torn between two women, searching for meaning in a world full of ambition and deception. Now, standing beside Mi-ran, the woman who had always loved him for who he truly was, he knew he had found his true happiness. Mi-ran smiled at him, her hand in his, and they shared a quiet moment together, knowing that their love had weathered the storm and come out stronger than ever. "Thank you for choosing me," she whispered, her eyes filled with love. Song-ju smiled, his heart full. "Thank you for choosing me too." They had built a life that was theirs alone, full of love, understanding, and peace. And as they looked ahead, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart.